Well, hello there. My name's Harsh, and if it tastes like foot, it's not a treat. Anyway, straight into the meat and potatoes as we talk about the Nicola Bulley case. And boy, has that case taken a bit of a turn. Now, the vast majority of you probably know this already. Some of you won't. It's just the way things are. Some of you listen to mainstream media. Some of you don't trust it as far as you could throw it. And some of you depend upon the folks here on the tube of you to get your full of information. So what information are we talking about? We're talking about the fact that Nicola Bulley, it has been said, was indeed from the very moment that she disappeared, she was a high-risk individual. Now, I touched on this yesterday in the live, but I know lives are not for everyone. The thought of staring at me for an hour on a screen would make you want to spoon your own eyes out, so I thought I'd put some little digestible, I can put up with him for that long kind of videos. So look, what do they mean by high risk? And we're going to get to something else a little bit later in the video, which talks about whether police should have opened their mouths in the first place, or if this was a little bit like closing the stable door after the horse had bolted, or in fact throwing the family under the bus to detract away from perhaps failings that they had from the very beginning. Or did they fail at all? And did they just get annoyed that they were being told that they failed, so this was a knee-jerk reaction and a little bit spiteful at that? Anyway, I digress. So look, Nicola Bulley, let's have a look at what they're actually saying so we make it make a little bit more sense. So here we go. This is a BBC News bit of paper, updated apparently 22 minutes ago. Police investigating the disappearance of Nicola Bulley have been criticised for revealing personal details about missing mum. On Wednesday, Lancashire Police said the 45-year-old had suffered with some significant issues with alcohol and ongoing struggles with the menopause. The force said it had told Miss Bulley's family it was releasing the details. Many people reacted to the release on social media, including MPs, legal experts and privacy campaigners. Miss Bulley disappeared while walking her dog. We know that she disappeared while she was walking the dog and kind of the details around that. If you're watching this and you know who the lady is, then you understand. So this is what we're saying. They're saying the Lancashire Police said their main theory is that she went into the River Wye during a 10-minute window between 9:10 Greenwich Mean Time and 9:20 that day, though her partner Paul Ansell has said he does not believe she fell into the water. Now I find this, let me just cut back here for a second, because I find this piece of information quite interesting, because on one hand they're saying she's high risk, and apparently they had visited her home for a kind of like the UK equivalent of a welfare check, if you like, for concerns of well-being on the 10th. So, a little over, 17 days later, she would go missing. And you kind of think to yourself, right, so the husband, the partner is saying she didn't go into the water. But then I'm thinking to myself, if he knew that she was high risk and they'd already had people out to the home to check on welfare, then surely he, unless he's in denial, he would think that there is a huge potential that she would be in the water. Unless he just meant she didn't fall, she could have gone in there of her own accord. I just struggle with that, because at the end of the day, law enforcement have focused massively on the water. And you now have to question whether that actually makes a massive amount of sense, because they would have had this information from the start, from the off, and there was no obligation for them to share it. Of course there wasn't. And it makes sense now why they did concentrate so focused on the water, because they're possibly at this stage in the understanding that she could have potentially entered that water of her own accord. But then it makes you wonder why the family would then argue the point and say that she didn't go in the water. So the family seemingly are saying, what? Are they saying that someone who is high risk, they had somebody out to the home to discuss well-being sort of 16, 17 days earlier, is what then gets kidnapped by someone, by a third party? Look, it's not completely out of the realms of possibility, but I think that law enforcement in this case potentially were operating right up to this point based on the information they had, and they were trying not to do what they in effect did. And this is where we have a bit of a twist, because then I wonder whether law enforcement acted a little bit spitefully. They were taking flack from social media. They were taking flack left, right and centre all over the place. And all of a sudden they do this press conference as if to say, look, we was looking in the water because we believed that this woman was high risk and she could have probably put herself in the water. She had issues with alcohol. She had issues with the menopause. Yada, yada, yada. There you go. Fucking do one. And that's how it feels. And I think that's why there's now this huge backlash. But look, what are we to say? Like I say, law enforcement seemingly operated the right way from the start based on the information that they had. And they didn't share it. They didn't need to share it. They were not obligated to do so. And they just made sure that they were focused on the water. Because I believe that they feel that she put herself in the water. What they did after the event, and with all this information coming out, was it right? Was it wrong? I feel that it was wrong. I feel that it was wrong because it has no relevance anymore. Again, you don't have to explain yourself the entire way through. How much criticism do we get, channels like this, saying you're not obligated to know everything? You don't deserve to know the ins and outs. You don't know. You're not part of the process. You can speculate. You can think. You can have all these wants and desires to know. But the reality is law enforcement and the people who wear the clothes and have the badges, they're the people who need to know. But then why do this later on down the track? Because it kind of then upsets the apple cart, so to speak, doesn't it? Because you now can't say, well, we didn't tell you at the beginning. Well, why are you telling us now then? What relevance does it have now? Oh, we're just telling you now because you were having a go at us. So we wanted to tell you why. Do you know what I mean? It's just a bit childish, isn't it? But look, the lady's still missing. And there are some massive questions now. The questions are, what did happen? There's people who do not want to believe that this lady would up and leave her children. People just don't want to believe it. People suffer with depression. They suffer with alcohol abuse issues. They suffer with many, many things. And I speak to people every day in the comments, people who have gone through these, and their thought process is, I would never leave my children. But people who have been around this page for a while, around this channel, I've known people who have themselves unalived themselves, who have children, who one day decided to up and disappear. Nobody can understand the pain some people are going in, and some people are incredibly, incredibly good at hiding what's going on in their minds. They don't want the people around them to suffer. They don't want the people around them to know how they feel because they don't want to burden them with that. And there becomes a breaking point where I think in their mind, they believe that the burden of going outweighs the burden of staying. And that's when they then decide to disappear. I don't feel that this is going to have a happy ending anymore. I do not. I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm right. And again, this is complete speculation, but it's speculation based on situations that I myself have seen and been very, very close to. And in fact, to this day, there are certain elements of our lives that sort of brush with things that I can imagine happened in this family's lives. And yeah, I don't know what you guys are thinking. I think there's still a lot of fingers being pointed at the partner because they're saying, well, where did this information come from? Who said that she was high risk? Is it the partner? I don't believe this partner had anything to do with this at all whatsoever. And I think that, you know, the people who are saying that he had something to do with it they have their right to their opinion, of course. And again, like we talk a lot of times when there's a situation like this, the partners, etc., you're always going to cut some flack just because what history has taught us. But I think in this case, this is a much sadder story. And maybe in the upcoming days or weeks, we're going to learn more about it. But for now, pray for those little girls who are now potentially going to be reading and seeing things about their mum, and the family now have to try and soften that information as they themselves now have to process it being out in the wider community. I'll catch you all in the next one.